It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back on Town Commander, and we are back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us on my quest to out-brew your favorite Magic channel. Commander Masters is here. It's brought us a lot of fun new commanders in the precons, as well as some great reprints, and we're talking about one of those today in Kykar Winds Fury. This is a deck I've had in the past, a deck that I had a lot of love for in the past, and I thought, why not reapproach it, reintroduce it in the new trappings that it has now, and see how my deck would look different. If you don't want to hear me yap about everything that's in the deck list is down in the description. You want to go check it out. Let me know what you think down in the comments. But if you do want to hear me yap, let's get into it. Kykar Winds Fury is a 1 blue, red, white bird wizard, both a bird and a wizard, 3/3. Has flying. So whenever you cast a non-creature spell, we make a 1/1 spirit of flying. And then we get Sacrifice a Spirit to get a red mana. Kykar is really great for two reasons. One, it makes you tokens. And two, it lets you use the tokens to get benefit. And I think that's what makes Kykar a great commander, is that you have a way to get something and you have a payoff. The best part about sacrificing those spirits for red mana is you can do it in instant speed and you don't have to tap them for it, which means you can use them immediately. Let's start with the lands. I did my best to kind of make a fun mix here of I think the lands you'd expect to see in a Jeskai deck. We are running the fetches and the shocks, so you can always pull those out if that's not something that interests you as far as lands go. We're trying out Glimmer Void because we have a lot of artifacts in the deck, so I think it's going to end up sticking well for us. Mystic Monastery still seems great in a deck like this. You want it, and you can use it. City of Brass gets us every color, and I think we're going to end up gaining some life at some point, so we're probably going to be okay with losing the extra, losing that life there if we need to. But again, I like the mana base. I think it does a good job kind of spreading all of our colors out and giving us a fun different types of lands to use. We got a couple utility lands. We're playing Reliquary Tower, and we're playing a bunch of fun other lands. So I like the mana base. I think it works really well. Okay, well, at the end of the day, Kykar can go a lot of ways, right? I think Kykar, in its most popular forms, is a Storm deck where you're trying to cast a ton of spells and storm off. What I kind of always wanted to do with Kykar was take advantage of artifacts and enchantments and just try your best to kind of take your board of spirits or other tokens that you're making, pump them up, and be an attacking threat as well as a damage threat. So there's kind of two big ways the game can win. One is the Impact Tremors Perforos route, which is dealing damage to our opponents when creatures come in. This is going to be helpful because we might be able to make a ton of tokens, and we might be able to damage our opponents that way by them coming in. The second is giving all of our tokens haste and just trying to run our opponents over with them. A lot of the tokens we're going to be making are in the air, and so it's going to force our opponents to try to deal with a bunch of tokens in the air. But if they can, then hopefully we can just win the game in the air, of course, as well. Getting into the enchantments, we got a pretty fun mix here. All That Glitters just got its pretty reprint in Commander Masters. Let's change it out and show it off. It's got that pretty reprint. This is great for something like Kykar because it can just bump it up with all of these artifacts and enchantments we're bound to have, and then it could potentially be a commander damage threat, or we could put this on something else and make it a big attacking threat. Annoying Procession and double the amount of tokens we're making. City on Fire is a card I absolutely love in a deck like this because it's going to be easy to get down. We could even sack spirits. We can convoke them and sacrifice them, which is pretty great. If a source you control will do damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage instead. This is a card that's going to help all of our little tokens potentially help knock people out even sooner because they're going to hit harder. Goblin Bombardment's great. This would actually pair pretty well with City on Fire, but sacrifice a creature to deal damage to any target. This is great because if we make a bunch of tokens and they can't attack, but we need to get rid of a creature or knock out a player, we can use Goblin Bombardment to do that. We talked about Impact Tremors dealing a damage to each opponent whenever a creature comes in. Intangible Virtue gives all of our tokens +1/+1 in Vigilance. This is important because, as you'll see when we go up, we have some Convoke things. We have some other things we want to do. So I think Intangible Virtue does well because then we can attack and then tap them, or for our spirits, attack, which the vigilance wouldn't matter, but we can attack and sacrifice them for the red mana. Jeskai Ascendancy is a card I absolutely love, and especially in a deck like this, Whenever we cast a non-creature spell, creatures we control get +1/+1 until end of turn. It's kind of like a mini prowess, but we get to untap those creatures. So the best part about this is if we tap them for Convoke, or we tap them for other things, now we get to untap them. And then it says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you can draw a card if you do discard. So we get to loot and just get a big prowess across all of our creatures. Metallurgic Summonings, whenever we cast instant sorcery, we get an XX artifact construct where X is that spell's mana value, and then we can pay 5 and exile this to get all instant sorceries back from our graveyard to our hand. This is great, kind of like Sharp Typhoon. It's just going to help us get extra tokens out on board, go even wider. Mirror Maid can come in as a copy of any artifact or enchantment on the battlefield. We could copy our opponents if we want to, but more often than not, we want to copy our own things or take advantage of getting 2 of our own things. Prosperous Partnership is a card I absolutely love. This card I've seen do so many cool things for me. So when it comes in, you get 2 1/1 tokens, and then you can tap 3 untapped creatures you control to create a treasure. What I like about Prosperous Partnership with Kykar is you could tap those spirits to get the treasures and then sacrifice them to Kykar's ability to get for the red mana. And then you kind of get double duty out of all of those spirits. That and, right, here's another payoff for this Vigilance. Attack and then make treasures with them, or make treasures with them on our opponent's turn if we don't need to block. I've always seen Prosperous Partnership just dump treasures onto the battlefield, and then we just have a bunch of extra mana to do things with. Rabble Rousing is a card that could look odd to some people in a deck like this, but it's great because you attack and you get that many tokens. So with something like Impact Tremors out, we attack for the board of 15 creatures, we make 15 creatures, we deal 15 damage. Rabble Rousing, I really like. I think it does a lot of really cool things, and hopefully we can hide away something cool with it, but otherwise we're just making a ton of tokens every turn when we attack. Rhystic Study for some draw. Rising of the Day, giving all of our creatures haste. All of our legendary creatures +1/+0. Roar of Resistance, giving all of our creature tokens haste. And then for 2 mana, we can give a flat 2/2/+0 buff to all of our tokens, which could definitely hurt. The cool part about Roar of Resistance is we can do it on our opponent's creatures as well, as long as they're attacking our opponents. So that's pretty cool because we could potentially buff up an opponent to help out their attack if it helps us. Shared Animosity is a card kind of with Coat of Arms that are kind of going to help us potentially end the game as well. Shared Animosity says whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 until in turn for each other creature that shares a creature type with it. This is, of course, going to be the best for our spirits that we're making with Kykar, but again, we have plenty of other ways to make other tokens. They're just going to attack and get bigger, and then Tithe to help us out for the mana. We talked about Coat of Arms just now, so I'll mention it again. So this is actually not an attack. This is just every creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares at least one creature type with it. The downside to Coat of Arms is it does affect our opponent's creatures. But the good part about Coat of Arms is I don't think we're going to care. I think we're going to have so many creatures that Coat of Arms is just going to end up overwhelming our opponents and just going to end up hurting our opponents in the long run. So I think it's more than worth it to play it. Again, we still might want to play it at the right time, but other than that, I don't think we're going to have any issues. As far as Mana Rocks, Arcane Signet, Decanter for the no maximum hand size, Fellwar Stone, Midnight Clock, one of my favorite Mana Rocks. Gives you the blue mana, but after 3 rounds of the table in a normal commander game, you shuffle your hand in your graveyard back in and draw a fresh 7. This can help us cast spells again. This can give us a fresh hand, keep the gas going for getting tokens. I think it's really important in a deck like this. Soul Ring, our 3 talismans, are kind of like utility artifacts that we're using. Halo Fountain's a really fun card. For 1 mana, we can untap a tap creatures we control and get a 1/1. 2 mana, untap 2 tap creatures and draw a card. 5 mana, untap 15 tap creatures, we win the game. That shouldn't be too hard depending on what we're doing, but I like Halo Fountain because, again, every turn we're probably going to be able to make another token and just run the board wide, so potentially we can win with that last one. Skull Clamp, a pretty classic card in token decks, right? Equip this to a token that has 1 toughness, it dies, draw you 2 cards, and you can do that all for 1 mana. And then a card that's kind of a non-bow with Intangible Virtue, but I think it's great in its own right. It's Throne of the God Pharaoh. It says, beginning of your turn, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tap creatures you control. So we go wide with the board and attack. Hopefully we're hitting our opponents for 8, 9, 10 mana, but the best part is we don't have to attack with our creatures as long as we tap them for anything. They count for Throne of the God Pharaoh. So I think there's so many ways to just damage our opponents and hit them. while they're hurting. All right, instants and sorceries. We're playing a lot of really interesting things because, again, at the end of the day, we're trying to make all of these tokens. We'll start with our instants. Big score, Brainstorm, Prismari Command, and Unexpected Windfall kind of act as our draw. Two of these guys give us treasures. One of them is a pretty classic commander card for drawing and manipulating top of your library. And then Prismari Command can do a lot of things. Destroy an artifact, make a treasure, draw 2, discard 2. I like Prismari Command. I like its versatility. You know, we could take out somebody's important artifact and draw 2, discard 2. We can make a treasure and take out an artifact. I just like that it's a draw spell and it's a destruction effect and it's a treasure. So there's a lot of different things we can do with it. Boros Charm, Clever Concealment, Flawless Maneuver, and Grand Crescendo are our protection spells. Boros Charm can give all of our permanents indestructible. Clever Concealment, if we have enough creatures out, we can convoke to phase out all non-target or all non-land permanents we control and protect them from a Cyclonic Rift or a board wipe or a lot of different things. Flawless Maneuver, as long as we have Kykar out, we can cast this for free. Otherwise, 3 mana to just give everything indestructible that we control. And then Grand Crescendo is really fun because we can make tokens with it, and then all of our creatures get indestructible. Grand Crescendo is a ton of fun because it could potentially add creatures to the board. And then give everything indestructible on top of that. Reality Shift, Swords to Plowshares for some removal. Mystical Tutor to get anything we need out of this little toolbox. And then Storm King's Thunder can have us copy a spell X times, and we can choose new targets for the copies. This is important for a couple different spells. Like the main combo I have for Storm King's Thunder in the deck is Tasha's Hideous Laughter. If you cast it enough times, you'll probably mill your opponents out. We could Storm King's Thunder on a Brass's Bounty. There's a bunch of things we could Storm King's Thunder on too, but it's just a fun copy spell, and it will count for Kykar on the cast of Storm King's Thunder, and then whenever we cast that next spell, we get another Kykar trigger. We don't get them on the copies, but there are some things in our deck that care about copying spells, so we will get them there. The other fun part for Storm King's Thunder is Transmogrify. It says we exile a target creature. Then that creature's in control reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature card, put that on the battlefield, then shuffle. This is kind of the cheaper version of what we'd really want this to be is Indomitable Creativity, right? That's the card that does this, but of course a pretty high price tag. So if you're looking to kind of have fun with this type of ability, you know, I'm playing this in the Polymorph over the Indomitable Creativity. But the cool part about creativity is it's artifacts and creatures, so you can actually sack some of your treasures if you want to try to get your mana rocks out of your deck or something like that. But you could put this into this, sacrifice your spirits, get a bunch of the creatures from our deck. It does work out pretty darn well. Brass's Bounty is just going to hopefully get us a ton of extra mana. And for certain creatures in our deck, certain things in our deck are going to potentially get this cheaper. Certain things, right, like a Metallurgic Summonings or a Shark Typhoon or one or two of our creatures are going to make some either a number of 1/1 tokens based on CMC, or in the case of Shark Typhoon and Metallurgic Summonings, we'd get a 7/7 out of the Brass's Bounty. So that's pretty darn good. Iganjo Uprising, 4 Orlingas, and Path of the Ghost Hunter are spells that are just going to make X tokens depending on how much mana we put into it. I love cards like this because we already get a spirit off of it, and if we have any way to buff those up, then they just become really good. Iganjo's Uprising gives us those Samurais with Menace and Haste, Orlingas gives those Knights with Trample and Haste, and then Path of the Ghost Hunter just gives us spirits, and that's great because then we can use that for Kykar for mana. Expressive Iteration, I think is probably a staple of Visit decks now as far as a draw. It's kind of a draw spell and a kind of look at the top two. You know, you can play them till end of turn type effect at the same time. One goes into your hand, one goes to the bottom, and one you can play that turn. I really like it. I think this is just like it's perfect for a 2-mana spell. Get them into your hand, get something in the bottom, get something to land to play that turn. Jessica's Will for some added mana, or again we can flip the top 3. And play them this turn. We talked about our Polymorph effect. Solve the Equation can get anything from these 2 stacks, and Supreme Verdict for a board wipe. All right, well, before we get into the creatures, we'll talk about our 2 last remaining non-creature spells. That is Invasion of Segovia. Probably one of my favorite battles from March of the Machine, because I think it's going to help out so many decks like us that either make tokens or want to use our tokens for other things. So on the front side, it gives us 2 tokens, but if we defeat it, turns into Kaitis, Sea Tyrant of Segovia, which says non-creature spells you cast have Convoke, meaning we can tap our creatures to help pay for them. At the beginning of our end step, we untap up to 4 target creatures. Well, this is great because we can tap our tokens to help us cast spells, and then we can untap our bigger creatures to help block, so I really like it. And then Sahili, whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we get a colorless servo artifact creature token, and then we can do some shenanigans with making an artifact into another copy of a creature we control. That's not as important. I think the top ability is what's really important, making that 1/1. Again, every time we cast a non-creature spell, netting that 1/1, or hopefully more, depending on what we have out. You notice we're not playing very many creatures, but the creatures we do have are important. We talked about impact tremors down in the enchantment section. That's going to get spearheaded as well with Witty Roastmaster, which says whenever the creature in its battlefield under control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and Perforos that says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under control, Perforos deals 2 damage to each opponent. So these 3 cards are all doing the same thing, which is creature comes in, ping our opponents, hurt our opponents. Obviously, if we can get more than one of these 3 out at the same time, that's great, but otherwise we're looking for at least one of them. Mondrak acts as a second copy of that Anointed Procession in our deck, doubling the amount of tokens we can make, and the cool part is we can sacrifice 2 other artifacts or creatures to make it indestructible if someone tries to destroy it. But our other creatures, Balmor seems like it'd be great in this deck. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, all your creatures get +1/+1 and trample. This is going to take all of those spirits that hopefully we're buffing up and give them tramples so people can't just chump them with little 1/1s. Harmonic Prodigy says whenever a shaman or wizard you control has an ability that triggers additional time, this will trigger Kykar twice, which is absolutely great, right? But it will trigger Balmor twice. And the other big one that it triggers twice is Stormkill Artist. So whenever we cast or copy an instant sorcerer, we get a treasure. So that will double Stormkill Artist as well. Magnus the Red seems really important in a deck like this. Instant sorceries cost 1 less for each creature token we control. We're going to try to have a ton of them, so Magnus is going to help us out a lot. And then whenever it deals damage to a player, we get another token. So this is just great because it's going to reduce the cost of our spells. What I like about something like Magnus is it's going to make something like this really, really cheap, because basically with Magnus, you'll be able to cast one of these X spells where X is the number of creature tokens you control for just 2 mana, right? Or and I think that's the upside. Then you could convoke your creatures and make it even more. Like the cool part about those creature tokens is this with that convoke ability out means you could get double, right? So the possibilities are endless in how you can combine those. Monastery Mentor just feels right. Gives itself has prowess, and whenever we cast non-creature spells, we get monks with prowess, so the deeper we go in our turn, the bigger they get. I like it. I think it's a fun token creator, and again, prowess is just, it can be a mess to track sometimes, but it can be hard for our opponents if we cast enough spells in one turn. Ovika, one of my favorite commanders as of late in its own right, but I think it fits more than well here. It's a 7-mana creature, yeah, it's a lot, but whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we make X 1/1 gobos, where X is the mana value of that spell. So the bigger the spell we get, the more we get them. This is why I love things like these X creation spells, because if we can get Ovika down, remember, we can sacrifice those spirits for red mana and probably get Ovika down even cheaper than it would be otherwise. Then something like this is just going to become ridiculous, because we can make a bunch of tokens with this, but then we get, X 1/1s where X is that CMC, is that mana value. So again, these are the spells that make me want to pair with Ovika. In fact, I would happily take a few spells out and put in some more of these just X creation spells, because I think they're so much fun and they have so much high side potential, especially if we're trying to play into this convoke game. Third Path Iconoclast, where we cast a non-creature spell, we get a 1/1 soldier or artifact creature token. Again, that's great. Another thing that can either do damage in combat, block for us, or be used for other abilities. Veyron, kind of a pricey card, but it does a lot of really great things. Whenever we cast or copy instant sorcery, it gets +1/+1, but it says if casting or copying a sorcery spell causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control, that ability triggers an additional time. So this is kind of another copy of Harmonic Prodigy, and this Prodigy, in the sense that it's Prodigy, yeah. In the sense that it's going to double up on triggers, but Veyron will also double its own triggers. But again, it'll double the Balmor trigger, it'll double the Kykar trigger, it's going to double the Ovika trigger, it's going to double a lot of things. So again, it fits the spot here really well because it's doubling the effects that we already care about. But this is my shot as a Commander Masters, a shot at kind of retooling Kiki and making it my own. This is a deck I'm definitely going to bring back to the testing table. I absolutely love Ovika. You can see my deck for it up on the channel. It's a deck I've been testing a ton, and I love it. I love it. I love it so much. But I miss this. I miss some of the things that White gives this deck in particular, and so part of me wants to just make Ovika into this Kykar list because I think it adds more of the things that I want and allows me to play, especially some of these enchantments like Rabble and Anointed Procession and Tangible Virtue that I kind of really want while still playing what I like about Ovika, which is Shared Animosity and City and Coat of Arms and City on Fire. So I will give an update probably at some point on what I'm testing and how it's going. So if you guys are interested in that, look for that in the future. But otherwise, what do you guys think of Kykar or Kiki? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinion. Kykar is back for Commander Masters, and I absolutely love this print. I love the portrait print of Kykar. It looks so cool. Finally showing off his face. I think in the original print it's there, but it's just definitely harder to see. You know, the fireball is definitely right what takes up the forefront of it, but I like here that it's the face, it's the bird, and I love it. Let me know what you think of Kykar down in the comments, and I will catch you guys next time.